Welcome to YoungMinds Parents Lounge. I'm Jo, I'm Head of Parent Services.
I'm Emma, I'm the Helpline Manager.
Thank you for joining us today. We're talking about divorce and separation and the impact that this can have on families and particularly on children. So Emma, it's something, is a really big topic for the Helpline. We hear about it all of the time. What are some of the ways in which separation can kind of impact on children?
Well, I think first of all children will be impacted, and I think it's just important to acknowledge that. Very younger children are more likely to exhibit clingy behaviour, bedwetting, tummy aches. I think it's important to remember the younger the child, the less they are able to articulate their feelings, so behaviour will become a form of communication. For older teenagers, they may become quite angry and they may do a little bit more acting out. So I think it's really important just to gauge what's normal for my child. Is there a marked change in their behaviour? And just being open to that and having a dialogue and having a conversation is really important.
And how hard is it for parents who are going through what could be a really acrimonious separation, loss? It might not be something that they're choosing to happen if their marriage is breaking down or their relationship is breaking down. How hard is it for parents to, whilst they're going through that, also be mindful of the impact on their children? It's a huge ask, isn't it?
It is really difficult. I mean, I think parents intrinsically always want to keep their children happy, healthy and safe, and they're looking to place their child's interests above their own, but it becomes unbelievably fraught with difficulty. So many parents describe being on the receiving end of abusive behaviour, volatile behaviour, and actually in the face of great provocation you cannot underestimate how hard and the toll that it takes on you as a parent when you consistently have to be the better person and the adult and put your child's needs first. So I think the important thing is about looking at self-care. So if it's really, really, really challenging and really difficult, what does that mean? Think about your resilience, think about your self-care. Create a support network around you and make sure that you have access to a confidant. And that confidant should be friends, family, neighbours, colleagues. The confidant must not be your child though, because the important thing here is a child will need some sort of explanation. The biggest question that a child will ask is why is this happening, why can't you stay together? And as a parent it is your job to give an explanation with some degree of honesty and simplicity, but it's also important to temper what you're saying. So be selective about the explanation that you're giving a child, ensuring that you're not using them as your own support network or confidant.
And sometimes children can really think it's their fault that this has happened. We hear a lot about kind of the anxiety that separation can cause. How can parents manage that?
I think just be clear, it's not obvious to a child that the love that you have for them is unconditional. It's not obvious to a child that the separation isn't their fault, but we firmly believe that an adult can only ever be responsible for what happens in an adult relationship. And it's so powerful for you as a parent, whether you're a mum or a dad, to share that with your child and actually let them know that you love them and that how you feel for them will never change. That is the foundation. And actually, even if there has been a huge amount of parental alienation, adult conflict, both of you are parents and that role isn't going to change.
We do hear a lot, don't we, on the helpline about parents talking about contact arrangements when a child may come home from the other parent and be really distressed, distraught because that other parent may be really trying to pull them into that conflict.
Yes. It does happen. It really does happen, and you can't underestimate how hard that is. And as a parent, sometimes you see your child suffering and you suffer with them and you can feel anger on their behalf and you want to do something about that, and I really understand that, but it is important to stand back as well, because often what you won't be able to always see and know is what really underlies that distress. And we know that children that leave one parent that go to the next will often feel a sense of grief and loss just because they're having to leave dad or they're having to leave mum, and that in and of itself is deeply distressing for a child. They're managing split loyalties and you can't underestimate how challenging that is. So if you see what you feel is behaviour that indicates something untoward has happened, or they seem to be really damaged by the contact with the other parent, don't make that assumption, don't make that judgment. Really take a step back, have a conversation with your child and invite them to talk about what what they're feeling and what's really going on, but just know and be mindful that it is going to be hard.
Because hindsight, as you said, is a marvellous thing, and I think that whilst you're going through it, it's very hard to not be drawn in. But the impact of acrimony, children will make their own minds up in time, won't they?
They will.
They
will, and you're right. It's really tough. I mean, if there's acrimony, there's acrimony. You can't pretend that there isn't. You can't sweep it under the carpet. And the best thing to do when there is adult acrimony is to acknowledge that with a child. Dependent on their age, you may not give any detail or context. So you may just acknowledge that there is conflict. And that is really, really difficult.
And when do services get involved? What happens?
Well, often when two parents are struggling to make shared joint decisions on issues such as contact and residency, mediation can be very useful. Now, mediation is a private, not a statutory service, and it does come with a cost. So it's not going to be accessible to everybody. It's usually around £600 to £700. But mediation will give those parents who can access it an opportunity to make safe joint decisions around those key issues. There are, however, Jo, some instances where family courts and perhaps even at times children's services get involved as well, and this will often be where there are disputes that cannot be resolved in mediation. If there is, for example, domestic abuse, then it is not safe to enter into mediation. Then something may go to family courts. But equally, it doesn't have to be an abuse concern or a safety concern. So if something goes to family courts, it means that there is a judge who is making decisions on what appears to be in the best interest of the children. Now, they will have CASCAF involved, and CAFCAS stands for Children and Family Court Advisory and Support Service. There will be a CAFCAS officer who talks to both parents, talks to all children, and makes a report to the judge, and that's a recommendation of what should take place, and the judge will make the final decision. Those decisions will decide who has got residency, whether that's split, if one absent parent can have contact, and if contact should be supervised or unsupervised. These are decisions taking into account the interests and safety of the children concerned.
And sometimes children will try and protect their parents, so actually you might not be aware that there is such an impact, and actually that might be manifesting in other settings.
That is very true. I mean, children, they will often almost try and assume the role of the parent who is no longer there. So they'll often try and take care of mum or take care of dad, or become their confidant, become their go-to person, become their support network. And I think it's really important just to try where possible to maintain that parent and that child dynamic. And that goes back to the importance of seeking support for yourself and having a separate support network.
So do you want to come on to kind of tips for parents to sort of really tackle and mitigate the impact of separation?
Absolutely. So I would always say, be honest about why the separation has happened, but also be selective. You don't want to, and you shouldn't want to give them all the information. Temper it based on the age and development of your child and what's appropriate or not appropriate to tell them. Just reassure them that you love them, and that's never going to change and it will never be in question. Really articulate that it's not their fault. They are not responsible for the separation. And finally, if it's possible, we know it's not always possible, but where possible, the adults should look to work together. And working together is in the best interest of the children. Working together on issues like contact, residency, decision making and parenting approaches.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emma, and thank you very much for joining us. Goodbye.